And what's going on? Brother Moses here, man. Calm down just a little bit, but I do got some information that I wanted to share. So rock with the kid. Appreciate it. No music, just gonna jump right into it because there was some very interesting information that I saw today here on Bloomberg. Man, this is what we shall be diving into real quick. And screen. There's a grandiose vision that some have, and then there are those who are deeply rooted in reality. And right now, that conflict of interest is troubling. It's causing some emotional turmoil, political strife, social. The water cooler ain't as casual as it used to be. And why is that? Because there's some who defend that grandiose behavior. They defend it and they validate it and they make every excuse in the book to justify it. And because of that, it makes it a little bit more difficult to have these conversations about things such as what you see here on the screen. I had to freeze it for you. These statements here. So let's break those down. Trump's finances. Do we recall what that situation or that allegation was regarding? Asking him to open up. And who started it? Maybe it was Hillary Clinton. They were going back and forth talking about different bullshit about each other, slander and throwing those bullets at each other, those political commentaries at each other as they were campaigning. And so they're going place to place, throwing that type of dirt around. And that statement, that allegation stuck. And so they're trying to remind you here that he still hasn't shown, like what most presidents have, their financial records. And he's fighting tooth and nail all the way to the Supreme Court justice. He even fought so hard to help get one appointed, Brett, so that he might have somebody in his corner should they ask him again. And those banks he's trying to sue to say, do not release. You do not have permission to release. That's that top one, Trump's finances, insurance fraud. I'm not too familiar with, so let's see if I can do this here. Let's see if it generates one. What did they say? They said do that. And then is banner create one. Enter. I'm gonna ask that question. What was insurance fraud allegation? Hey, perfect. Let's bring that back up. Remember the porn star payoff does easy skip. Ukraine quid pro quo. Now that one's deep. That one has the deeper ramifications that one might talk about. I won't, but somebody might talk about that shit. All I know is when it comes to being a multinational enterprise and executive thereof, that you're making promises sometimes that you cannot not keep. So the end of that discussion is, did they get paid though? And in many cases, they say they got something, but it wasn't what was promised. Next up is Trump's taxes. That's also linked to the finances, but they do want to see them tax returns, which is why they said it twice. These ones in the green are the one that stick out the most, like this alleged assault. That one's heavy. That's a heavy allegation right there. And if it's sexual assault, then that's even more heavy of a something to look at. But even the Brett Kavanaugh alleged sexual assault went so far back that they were like, man, let it go. And they let it go. And he became a Supreme Court justice who could actually defend Trump in this case. And he needs him right now. And then there's that bank fraud. Not too sure about what that one is, but when you got all them hotels and all of that shit, I think it was the storyline of tried to put it in my son's name or some shit like that, or it was some weird shit that they was talking about. I didn't really get too deep on the bank fraud allegation. So that would be another one that somebody could more allude to. Conflicts of interest, unreported or reported. Did you know? I think at the level of billionaire, most motherfuckers know. And if there's things that they don't know, then that's probably the cost of competition, trade secrets and shit. So conflicts of interest, is it still about disclosure? That's really what it is. Trump's finances, Trump's taxes. Is he going to be forced to disclose? And the one right there across his mouth being the hush money, paying people not to disclose. And I think that's probably in a lot of contracts that Trump has, is a no disclosure clause. And then when it comes to, I have a lawyer, as many people might remember, the Rudy Giuliani was still in his back pocket as somebody he could call on if he really needed it. And in fact, I think he has come to his aid in a couple of cases. The one that I'm thinking about in particular would be the opioid family defense, and getting that money for the federal government approved for those opioids, even for veterans. So there's the positives and the negatives that you could take from that, but that's one of the cases where Rudy Giuliani had to step in and go to bat. Now, this one on illegal profits, man, that's a weird one when you're talking about a multinational enterprise in comparison to places like Apple, which was once said to have used offshoring as a way of using their intellectual property rights and having a 0% tax rate on the value of that trademark or copyright or whatever it was. I don't know if offshoring was the right terminology used in legal jargon, but essentially, when you're a multinational enterprise, where do you find the best bang for your buck when it comes to rates? And on some rates, the tax rate is an important one. And so I don't know how to side on that one, to be straightforward. But those are the ones in the green. These ones in the yellow, there's reverse defamation. That was probably recent. And then the Carroll defamation. The defamation is using against you something that you've said. And I'm pretty sure if they check anybody's call logs scrutinized enough, I think the rebuttal to those cases is if you were using wiretapping illegally, then the fruits are of a forbidden tree on the legal terminology. Like you didn't have, and if you did though, even with the federal government and them, did you have the appropriate jurisdiction in the spaces where the multinational was operating? Did that multinational have some form of diplomatic immunity from sort of spying or whatever it is, or that wiretapping and shit like that? And if the answer is you were in a public space or you were in a private space, then that battle is similar to the lawsuits that he has filed, which is against banks and shit. So that's big information right there. So the Trump investigation guide, impeachment inquiries and lawsuits by Brother Moses. In case you missed it, just wanted to add some of those talking points in a recap. Today is here to 12/13/2019. Just want to make sure that information was still being spread so motherfuckers know. I mean, 2020 election is coming, and now you have the information that's been put out there about the guy. Take it or leave it. I'm not biased one way or the other. I told you what it is that I remembered, from the Trump's finances all the way down and through. Hopefully it didn't sound too biased for or against. Some of the other conversations and things that are thrown that could have been added will be omitted at this time for the sake of time and a video. Got to get back to some other YouTube content that is currently streaming live right now that I actually like. So I'm gonna move over to this second part of this story and keep it going, because as you see in the title, this is about a little bit more than just a Trump review. This is actually about the ADOS. Damn, is this thing still even going live? Hopefully it is, and if it's not, then oh well, life happens and we move forward. It's been about 9 minutes in at this juncture. I will take a quick leave, so I'm going to throw on a little bit of music right there from my playlist here that I have available from folks who I've rented it from.
But I did. What changed? I am not the same. No, I am not the same. I am your man. I admit this was not the plan. Why should I give a damn if you feel like we can change?
All right, and cool. Bring that shit right back. And so, how did a conversation or a hashtag, a marketing gimmick, a blogger's opinion gained so much steam that it hit Wall Street right across the nose. Wall Street, the New York Stock Exchange, the World Trade Center got hit by international conflict. Funk Wall Street and reached the C-suite of Wall Street, the higher floors of those buildings, the upper echelon. How did a hashtag get there? How did African American content streamed live, unedited on YouTube, how did its influence hit Wall Street? Was it on this one? I think it might be on this one. Yeah, no, I don't want to do that one first. I want to do this one first, but we'll come back to that story and how it's connected. Woo! Yeah, let their advertisers flow, and shout out Bloomberg's Michelle Davis for putting this masterpiece of a sharing screen together. Jamie Dimon, CEO, says racist behavior doesn't reflect JP Morgan culture. Racist behavior. How is or why is Jamie Dimon having a conversation around racism? And was he referring to in the workforce when he says it doesn't reflect their culture? My question would be, does it reflect your statement that it's not your culture? Racism is not your culture. My question would be, Mr. Jamie Dimon, is it reflected in compensation? Is it reflected in compensation that, racism doesn't exist in your culture? If we looked at the compensation across the board, across all levels, and put those into quartiles, where would your diverse talent fall? Where would that we're not racist in our culture, or there is no fit for it in our culture? Where does it hit the bottom line? Let's read it and find out. JP Morgan Chase and Company Chief Executive Officer Jamie Dimon said he's instructed his management team to look into the bank's policies, practices, and culture after a New York Times article described racial discrimination in an Arizona branch. According to a memo sent to employees, I'm disgusted by racism and hate in any form, Dimon wrote in the memo. Any such behavior, explicit or veiled, deliberate or unconscious, is unacceptable and does not reflect who we are as a company and how we serve our clients and communities every day. Dimon asked employees to be active in making progress on that front. The bank is among more than a dozen financial service firms that last year joined the Diversity Project to help ensure professionals in the industry are as diverse as the clients and the communities they serve. The bank also reached a settlement more than a year ago with financial advisors who say they were treated poorly because they're Black. Racism, ADOS, how did you hit Wall Street? Last year, how did you empower Black folks to finally say something? And how did that finally influence the man at the top, with the best office and the best view, the top of the food chain? We are a capitalist system driven primarily by what is said and done on that street by the people who sit on those floors, and the echoes and the whispers of the things they discuss. And one of the things that Jamie Dimon chooses to discuss, maybe it's critical to shed a little light on who Jamie Dimon is right there. Who is Jamie Dimon? I'm going to go to the source, and I will donate to keep Wikipedia alive, and I appreciate them making their content available. But born in 56, what is that, a boomer? Educated at Harvard for his MBA. Occupation as a chairman of the Business Roundtable, chairman and CEO of JP Morgan Chase, a salary of, in 2018, $30 million total compensation package, including a base salary, bonuses, stock options, and other benefits Tell me about other benefits that allow your compensation to be $30 million in a year. Tell me about that. And let's see how that pans out across the spectrum. Are there the lakefront houses and the boats and the yachts distributed? Are there the real estate and assets amongst the leading diverse talent at JP Morgan Chase, the largest of the big four American banks, the largest of the big four American banks, in a capitalist system that we call America, that is driven by the ideology of a dollar. He was previously on the board of directors of the Federal Reserve, a Federalist, even from the 50s. So 50 years before him, and 50 years before that, or around 48 years before that, there was an establishment of a Federal Reserve. Note, there was a bill there in the 1860s that established this Federal Reserve type of monetary system, and generationally it was passed down, a power or a strength, a decision-making, an authority, a voice, an opinion, a seat at a table. Even the table itself was passed down, assets and resources and positions and power. Diamond was included in the Time Magazine's 2006, 8, 9, 11 lists of the world's 100 most influential people. 100 out of billions of human beings in the world. Top 100 most influential people. 4 years. Now, who publishes that Time magazine? So it's published right there in New York. He was born in New York. So, okay, that sounds like quid pro quo, whatever that freaking phrase is. I hate that fucking word. It sounds like a homie that know a homie. It sounds like intergenerational power to have a conversation, homie to homie, man to man, brother to brother, cousin to cousin, uncle to uncle, nephew to nephew. It sounds like interconnected families. It was founded in 23 and he was born in 56. So 30, half of that to the 1900s, where these banks really started to see some action, all the way to the big decline that crippled America for a second, and it depressed America. And then there was a father. Great Migration, so much. And from that, a son of the Great Depression, $30 million total compensation. What are those other benefits? Diamond is one of the few bank chief executives to become a billionaire, thanks in part to a U.S. $485 million stake in JP Morgan Chase. Now that's betting on yourself. How did you get to $485 million stake with a $30 million compensation package? So that had to have been consistent, and that $30 million compensation had to have been doing more. It wasn't just your compensation, but your $30 million was just related to the JP Morgan Chase, but that's not saying what your total net worth was those years because of $30 million in compensation. Let's have the conversation. Diamond received $20 million in compensation for his work. In the fiscal year 2013, he received 29.5 and 17. Greek. Oh, Lehman Brothers are even mentioned. Goldman Sachs, after graduating, we convinced him to turn down offers from Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, and Lehman Brothers. Definitely glad he didn't choose that one. They filed for bankruptcy. What happened to Morgan Stanley? Now, that's a good family as well. We know about the Morgan Stanley family. And in fact, if I click on it, it'll probably take me to the bank when I'm trying to talk about the person, because they love having conversations about these industrialists. So if you could trace back that money and see if his statement is true that it's not rooted in racism, we can talk banking, we can talk finances. But we got to have that conversation from first the lens of economics and compensation. It has to be said. It has to be said. And so they jump into the diversity project. And you have to ask, well, what is the diversity project? Promoting investment industry diversity. The purpose of the diversity project is to accelerate progress towards an inclusive culture in the investment and saving industry. The Diversity Project is a transformative international undergraduate research program that promotes diversity in the sciences. Diversity Project, first year in review. At a glance, our mission to promote a diverse and inclusive asset management industry. Diversity Project, diversity in business. Money managers back the Diversity Project. Fidelity Investments, Northern Trust Corporation, and State Street Global Advisors are among the charter members of the Diversity Project. What do they have? A charity? Charity club, disbandment, nonprofit organization, the Diversity Project. Sounds important. Let me see. Run that back. A startup fired its CEO for expensing $76,000 at strip clubs. The expenses spanned a 3-year period at Turbo, a maker of logistics software in Silicon Valley. Story by Sarah McBride, Yahoo Finance. Scott Lang, the new chief executive, an Asian guy of Turbo Inc., wants to emphasize, sounds Chinese too, Lang, but maybe I'm wrong, an important corporate policy. According to legal filings, Gilmore 39 didn't deny the allegations, but he sued the company, claiming the board didn't follow the proper protocol for his termination. He shot back at him and then declined to say anything more than that. We have a pending investigation. Lang, a former executive in the industry, joined Turbo just before Thanksgiving. Silicon Valley startup makes software to help companies track the movement of freight. It's backed by $85 million of venture capitalists. In his first interview since taking the job, Lang said he's focused on helping the company move past the scandal. Asked about trying to win over prospective clients at stripper joints, he said never have and never will. That's crazy. Winning over prospective clients at stripper joints is legitimate business. The situation at Turbo, which hasn't been previously reported, illustrates the steps some boards are taking to quietly address allegations of misconduct before they become public. Hashtag Me Too movement. Hit that boy. It's claimed that the jobs of many technology executives such as Chris Duggan, Better Work Systems, and Andy Rubin of Essential Products Inc., the venture capitalist Justin Callback, and all of these names they drop, and I don't give a fuck. Often the consequences only arrive after allegations are published in the news. Don't care. Gilmore, a veteran of Microsoft and Coupon, started Turbo, the Abu Dhabi-based sovereign wealth fund. This sovereign wealth fund, that's a legitimate conversation. You have a nigga talking about that shit, and they'll be calling them all type of fraud and shit. Marcus Garvey scandal and a nigga trying to make a whole business venture fail, the same way they did that damn boy talking about a real estate investment fund, Morrison and shit. Anyway, moving forward, investment in Sunnyvale, California based. So Abu Dhabi is still investing in California. Soon after, they hired a new chief financial officer who discovered a pattern of unusual charges. Unusual charges? What's unusual about it? These motherfuckers be on the golf course and shit, taking dumbass flights just to have conversations with motherfuckers, not even moving the needle for it, not even earning a motherfucking dollar, just burning fucking flights, going somewhere to talk about something stupid. the stripper related expenses, strippers, and trying to win over a client. That's what happens. You be buying all type of lunches and bottles of shit. Have one of those motherfucking holiday parties to see how many bottles they fucking buy. Be buying out the bar and giving motherfuckers drink tickets and shit. Everybody here gets drink tickets, man, but they gonna talk about going and doing this shit at a strip club. Stop hating on business, man. And definitely when there's sisters in those motherfuckers who is liable to get hella tricks. Motherfucker, fuck that nigga. Throw my protection over ours and then keep that shit moving. And Gilmore made no attempt to conceal them. Strip clubs represented more than half of the $125,000 in entertainment charges. See, how can they talk about strippers and strip clubs and shit indirectly? They could talk about Me Too. They could talk about those issues, but they can see on YouTube or put up a ban or a strike for that type of shit. This is the type of information that's necessary and I have conversations about and make feelings about it. This shit is money right here. 125,000 in entertainment charges. You get to the point of writing off or expensing $125,000 at a strip club, boy, you doing it big. Talk about rappers going in there and blowing it, or football players going in there and blowing it, but now an executive at a club who's trying to land a client. What if the client was a football player, a basketball player, or a star? It's a big part of the entertainment charges, man. That strip club life, pulling in CEOs and representatives of companies, that's the type of business that draws in good business, man. That's what keeps rappers rapping, man, aspiring to get they album or they song played in one of these clubs, throw a party in there, having girls dancing and going buck wild, man. Sex still sells, man. Get the fuck out of here, man. That shit's crazy. That shit's crazy. Now, you do got those different issues with strip clubs that people could talk about all day, but you don't just ban all strip clubs or the action that it generates in our economy based off of your own pompous self, man. In the Bible Belt, they go to war. They be talking about even the tips that they make, man, trying to get them down to like damn near you can't even make minimum wage. Motherfuckers sitting in the motherfuckers bored as fuck waiting on a real CEO to walk in that motherfucker flexing his thumb and trying to throw a holiday party. Now they got to go to these big ass hotels and book them for thousands and go to Disney with hella. Man, get the fuck out of here, man. Stop playing games, you perverted bastards. At a hastily called meeting in May after the board learned of those expenses, directors from Mabudala. And okay, so that's where the pressure could come from as well, though, because you're talking about Abu Dhabi. They're strict against type of shit like that. And even with the backing of the Me Too, they could be primary backers in that Me Too movement type of shit. And essentially, when you say Abu Dhabi, you're still talking, I would say, about Indians and like Pakistanis and people who fall into any of those categories who are getting those technology-based H-1B visas and shit. Those are the jobs that they trying to protect in Silicon Valley or Sunny Valley and all of that shit. Microsoft Corporation and shit like that. But them Indians or Asians, as you might want to call them, them be some perverted motherfuckers. They just strict as hell if you go to Abu Dhabi and shit, though. I mean, but both sides can make money as they continue to throw it out there now. Someone will have to dig deeper and see if that's an area of opportunity to invest in research. I'm not finna do it because that's just too much. I don't do the slut shame walk and all of that shit. Man, fuck that, man. Money's out there and there's big opportunities to be made, and I'm not in a position to hate on none of that shit. $125,000. How do you even get to that expense, that budget? You're already somebody making big decisions, so you could only suppose that those were big clients you were trying to land or entertain, trying to extend that contract. Some people go play golf. Some people go play bowling. Some people join them at little clubs where they walk around with fucking nasty fucking finger foods in their hands. They do all type of weird ass shit, spending big bank in order to do the same exact thing. But they discriminate against this certain line of business and call that outside of the morality and shit. No, people with that issue, the Abu Dhabi people, if they want to have that, I think he did right, his lawsuit or his counterclaim. And even though his counterclaim doesn't speak to what they're talking about, that allegation, I think his claim gets more conversation in that room. It gets more consideration. And it being prompted or even encouraged or represented by a faction of Me Too, that shit is going to hurt. That testimony there is one of the things that hurts. And so that is a good counter rebuttal when you're talking about strip clubs. And women and the treatment of women and women in the workforce and then diverse talent and all of that shit. So that LGBTQ community is fighting. They got their battles. On one hand, will they protect the strip club? Will they protect the rights of women who want to go off and that's how they earn their living? And him being a good patron or a business manager who find a niche group of people who want to go there. The people who he was trying to land had to say yes. So first of all, that was a mutually exclusively and almost probably beneficial if he actually even landed some of those deals. Out of that entertainment, which they probably have that information for, he could probably show a track record or the success. This 125,000 could have resulted in a net gain of $500 million contracts. And so, how do you try to punitively fire him for doing what's essentially in his job description, to hunt and to go get those contracts? Likewise, it could have backfired and it could have resulted in nothing but a good time. And I digress. That same argument can be made with some of those stupid ass golf tournaments they be participating in, not winning a damn thing, and in fact end up signing a check just to participate in it. And it becomes more of just a photo op. So you have just documented, or what they call it, branding at that point. We spread the brand. And if that's the case, they're talking about their brand shouldn't be affiliated with strip clubs, then there's a whole nother conversation there. There is an entirely different conversation there. The hypersexuality is a conversation, and do you support it from a financing institution position or not? Do you support it as a business? Which of your products are actually operating within those same strip clubs? I digress. That's an interesting case. Opens up a hell of a lot of conversation, right? Because this strip club conversation is hella schmuck. That's how they can lead it. That's how they can get the links. And in fact, the picture that they used was one that's very good marketing of a conversation around strip clubs. And this is another one of those major lawsuits that can be discussed from a broader spectrum. For the African American, I think they benefit from, because you got to look back at your life and in your situations. How many times were you fired from a job and you didn't have any rebuttal? You didn't have any counter argument. You didn't file a claim or nothing. The claim that you end up filing is unemployment, something like that. You didn't see the bigger picture, and thus $76,000. That's bigger than the median income of the American household. I think the median income is like $62,000 if we understand median. But I also like this story on economics, and so I'm going to bring that. Look, they're trying to tell me to spend some money with them. Same type of technologies are used in the strip club. That was my last free article. It's all good, man. Hi, man. I'm back to the other live channels, man. Just wanted to deliver a little bit of content. As you see, we got some major shit happening. Major shit happening. This was the stream that I was on a little bit earlier, and I see that grandiose vision, the taking down of people who live with a sense of I am, a sense of delusions of grandeur, as we might call it. The delusions of grandeur. When I was on this channel, it was brought up by the lady here. And when this lady started talking, it triggered a vein, a nerve. I mean, and a little bit more that's been happening this week. Of course, you have the Trump impeachment trials that are going on, and a lot of people having a conversation without really knowing what those allegations are incorporating. And so I just wanted to deliver a little bit of content on that in case you missed it. There was a lot that's being said. Some of the arguments are no bits and pieces, but I thought it was a good time to just bring it all together in one big package, even including the Brett Kavanaugh being added on as a Supreme Court justice to help fight for him. Rudy Giuliani out of New York, the big New York families. Showed you a little bit of content and information about Jamie Dimon, also in New York, Wall Street. Gave you some content that's even good for the ADOS argument, how that conversation, that dialogue is reaching Wall Street, the very top, to where they're talking about racism now and that it's not a place in their culture. Challenge Jamie Dimon on that, looking at his wealth that he's been able to amass, and say, now look at your diverse talent. Does that reflect their compensation? Those investments, that big gamble of $485 million, is that type of success reflected across your diverse talent? Why? Because the ADOS do have a claim Reparations are owed. There's nothing that you can say to argue against that. Wrap that up with some more information about diversity, as that's the way that they talk about us, diverse talent. And we have some great diverse talent. For us, we say, for them, they say ADOS over there, but for us, we call it B1. And we keep Black first top of mind. Now, I give you the top. Why? Because capitalism is our system. We can break that all the way down to the content that I talk about every time you hear me, the 1860s, the Federal Reserve establishment and all of that, and then show you with content in less than an hour this time. I got to note, show you with content the families that are interconnected and still operating. If I'm talking too fast, maybe you're listening too slow. Brother Moses, Black first, B1 Network, we deliver content because we got work to do.